welcome back to the Promoted Podcast. I'm your host, Felicity Furey, and I'm on Gubby country today in the beautiful Sunshine Coast, and I'm joined by the incredible Renee Tomlin. Boom, got it right this time, Renee. I'm a work in progress. Renee is an aviator, speaker. Well, actually, aviator is technically the wrong word since I've been told. Commercial pilot. You're all about the aviation industry, sustainable fuel. You've got an incredible career yourself, Renee. It's awesome to have you back for this. I think we have different views on this one. So I'm curious to get into this conversation today.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And also, why is aviator wrong? Where did this come about?
Someone technically told me an aviator's when you do like the tricks and the, you have done you've done the aero stuff. I don't know. I'm just not in the industry as much as you, Renee, so I don't want to offend our fellow aviators.
I think you're an aviator. I think I'm an aviator. I think anyone that flies and enjoys seeing things from a whole new perspective is and should be an aviator as well.
Right.
Where are you calling in from today?
And you're calling in from Larrakia country up in Darwin. Great to have you here, Renee. And this topic today, I think, is going to be interesting. Before we jumped on, we'd already disagreed about something. So we'll see where this one leads. And really, we're talking about reputation and character as a leader and in your career. So there might be things that are happening with your organization or with your project that you might not agree with from a values perspective. It could be affecting your reputation and your character in the industry. And it can be super tricky. We've seen some of these big organizations having ethical challenges. It's been very public. There might be something that's being reported in the newspaper about your company that you literally have no control over, but it's affecting you and your reputation, potentially questioning ethics that you have in the industry as a leader because of something that, say, your larger organization has done. So it's going to be an interesting topic today, Renee. What are your thoughts on this? I know it's a huge topic to cover.
Yeah, so reputation is something that I think means living your values. And I think that if you don't act in the same way with consistency, showing up and really demonstrating those values, it can be seen as managing optics. So for me, I think it's how do you walk into a room and truly check in on people? How do you speak about people when they're in the room or when they're not in the room? How do you make time for listening and truly showing up? So again, that relationship building is really important. So for me, reputational management can come in many different forms. I think, Felicity, you and I did a great topic recently on the power of your voice. That is a really great example of showing up and really demonstrating reputation through integrity, great values, and respect for people and their differences. So that's one example. The power of your voice is stepping into public speaking or having your say at a table. But yeah, reputation can be incredibly challenging to manage. And I think what happens at a point in time as well throughout your leadership journey is you build more credibility. You gain more perceivable power, you gain more skills, and therefore your self-confidence grows. And I think as well, you build this accountability to deliver on parameters, measures, targets. And sometimes what can happen is it feels like there's this real tension that exists between you achieving the company KPIs and you acting with ethical leadership and integrity. And what I mean by that is, you might have a short turnaround time to deliver something. And so you stop caring for people as much in the way that you operate because you just feel like this massive and immense time pressure. Or you have to make decisions like, let's say, cutting down your team, transformation. And if you don't deliver that with authenticity and trust and empathy for the people that you're delivering that with and to, it can feel really unethical, or the power dynamics can become really apparent. So for me, that's what leading with reputation really looks like. It's constantly balancing delivering and moving at pace in this commercial context, which I think is probably really relevant. And perhaps, Felicity, you can speak to kind of the NGO space. But yeah, that's the balance, is managing expectations and delivering on this commercial value whilst bringing people along with you and doing that really ethically and with the right integrity. What do you think, Felicity?
I think it can be really tricky for a leader because my kind of go-to is being transparent and open, but sometimes you can't always share all the information with your team. And I love what one of my amazing mentors, Brett Bassett, says. He said it on our Emerging Excellence podcast. If you haven't checked that out, highly recommend. I have great chats with Brett, who's the CEO of QLeave, and we also speak with other incredible executive leaders. And he says, someone asks him a question, even publicly in a town hall, he'll say, I can tell you the answer, or I can't tell you the answer, or I know the answer, but I can't tell you right now, or I don't know the answer. And I really love that approach because it is transparent while also managing those reputational things, because as a CEO, you've got a particular role to do and deliver. And I think that's a really fantastic approach, and one that I've really taken to heart, because I want to just tell everyone all the things, which actually also sometimes doesn't work for people in your team because it's not relevant that they know that. And I want to talk particularly on this topic today around what if you have a boss or a leader in your organization who you can tell has poor character. So an example I'm thinking of was a friend who they work in this organization and they saw that their leader was genuinely dodgy. They were misappropriating funds. And so this person was on the team where they were fundraising. And so they were looking at, how do I actually manage my reputation in this scenario? So as soon as they found out, they emailed their manager to document it. They spoke about it with them on the phone, and they documented what they saw was happening. And then they had to do a bit of, I guess, damage control, speaking with other people in within the industry, figuring out how much do they know. Do they know about this leader? Do they know what they're doing? Of course, making sure that the facts are correct, that this person is doing something that could be dodgy. But also, I think having things like those paper trails and documenting conversations can be yucky, but I think it's really important that that's a step that people take. So I thought that approach was done really well, obviously addressing it with the person, then documenting the process. They ended up resigning from the company, and then interestingly have built fantastic relationships that still exist today with people who were a part of that organization who also saw this dodgy leader. And I think that's kind of a good news story, is you can still maintain some of those relationships. But I think it's really important that you're clear to not get caught up in that leader's kind of path of destruction. Have you experienced this before, Renee, and how have you navigated it?
Yes, this is something that I have experienced in my career. So how did I deal with it? And I wouldn't lean into unethical leadership. It was probably just a case of a values misalignment, in that they were doing the best that they could with the skills and capability they had, but it definitely appeared to be missing the mark for the broader team. So I think the first thing was recognizing what's actually happening and speaking about it with trusted people to get a broader awareness, to understand if this is something I need to reflect on, in that this is a different form of leadership, it's a different style, it's a different culture. So therefore, is there something I can learn out of this? So self-reflection is always my first point of call when I think about unethical leadership or somebody that has the power to ruin my reputation. The next step I would take is reporting, absolutely. So when did it happen? What was the context around it? And then how did you speak up about it? So generally what happens in moments where there is misalignment between a team and a leader, there is an expectation, I would say, that you have to talk about this with that leader, which can be an excruciating position to be in because there's so many things at play. There's power dynamics at play. That person has so much power over you. You don't know how they could then influence your career and speak about you to other people and potentially beat you to the chase in a way where they ruin your reputation whilst you're trying to report on them, which can be such a tricky thing. So this is where reporting is really important, and speaking to your trusted circle to get that support and just build awareness. So I think I had to, in my case, have a conversation with the person when I called it out. And the reason that I also felt, I suppose, empowered to do this is because I would hope that before I was reported on for doing the wrong thing, that someone would come and tell me first. And I kind of apply this in every aspect of my life, not just business. If I upset a friend, I would hope that friend would come and speak to me. If I upset my partner, I'd hope my partner would tell me off or come and speak to me in the most empathetic and kind, respectful way. So yeah, that's what I applied in the workforce. It was an incredibly challenging conversation to have when I had it, and I got the response that I did not expect. I went into this conversation thinking, I'm doing the right thing. I am bringing this to the attention of my leader. This is so powerful of me to step in and lean into this uncomfortable conversation. And it went to bits. And it was because there were feelings of insecurity, challenging power dynamics. And again, I think that this comes from this cultural dynamic that existed between the two of us. We had very different cultural experiences in our careers and as people. So yeah, that didn't go well. So then again, I leaned on my trusted circle. And that's where I started formally reporting, because I didn't feel safe to actually escalate it any further to my leader. And even I would go as far, if that conversation did go well, I would then give that person the space to make change. I would pause, I would give them maybe a month and see if things change. If things don't change, I would probably approach the conversation again, because it went well and I felt comfortable and supported to have a really hard conversation. If that, again, didn't deter or change behaviors, I would then probably escalate it to their boss. So take it one level above your leader and again, have the same conversation, but show the documented information. I've had 2 conversations now over 2 months. These are the things that I've reported on. I would like your support to help make change for our team. So that's how I would frame that to the second up leader. In my circumstance, there was a conflict of interest with my leader's leader. They were best friends, and I knew that. And I knew that her one-up leader had employed my leader. So I didn't feel safe to actually go and have a conversation with this person, because they weren't that approachable they were an executive role. They changed their behaviors intermittently based on the different environments they were in. So I didn't actually trust this person as a leader full stop, let alone the best friend to the leader, where I was seeing this kind of, unethical leadership or this kind of reputational challenge that I was in. So that's where I went to HR then. So you have multiple avenues of reaching out to people, connecting with your team to see if they're okay, and then also escalating things with your direct manager or HR. So they're all the avenues that I explored. And in the end, action was taken, and I think that that's the beauty of taking action and speaking up, is inevitably, even if it takes a long time, the right thing will result. So I always encourage that. And even if that leads to you exiting the business because change isn't happening fast enough, I would still advocate that that's the right move, because there is a bit of a values conflict, misalignment. But again, that leads into many other challenges. Are you in a position that you're able to leave your work? Can you find other work? But certainly, I think that rallying people that you trust around you and escalating things is always the first piece of advice I would give.
Yeah, I feel like it's a never easy thing to have happen, particularly when there are all of those dynamics that you've mentioned, Renee, and that is a super tricky case. And yeah, sometimes you have to be in your workplace for whatever reason, and you have mortgages or whatever, or your family, so you can't actually change roles easily. And yeah, it can be so tricky to have put all those things in place. These are not easy conversations; they're the difficult conversations to have. You just reminded me, and I'm having so many flashbacks to difficult conversations I've had as a leader when it comes to reputation. And I think addressing it promptly is really the key, and so powerful and important. And like you said, going to that person straight away, and that sort of benefit of the doubt situation. And I think a lot of these things can be a miscommunication sometimes. And it's actually discovered through that first conversation that you can pull apart. Oh, okay, I can see your perspective. That's different from my perspective, and actually talk those through and have those conversations to kind of get back on the same page. I just remembered one where It was actually a partner of ours was really upset with Power of Engineering, and I did not want to call them. They're like, Power of Engineering is on a bad job, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And they were complaining about us to somebody. And I had to pick up the phone. I had to call them. I had to listen to their complaint. And actually, once they'd complained a bit, they actually calmed down a lot and we could actually get back on the same page, discuss those expectations that were a little bit different from what each of us had. And even though we documented everything, it was in an agreement, there was still that perception that we were going to do all these things above and beyond what was actually written in the agreement. And you also reminded me when I was a grad, and undergrad, I was applying for grad jobs and I put someone down as a referee, and the company called them up and they said, look, I'm not available. I'll put you on to Felicity's direct boss. And I kind of felt like I really didn't get along with my direct boss. So I'd put my boss's boss down as my referee. So they speak with this person and then they called me and said, hey, they gave you a really bad reference. And I was really surprised. I said, wow, what did they say? And this HR person said, oh, he said, you're late to work, you're not on time, and a bunch of other things. And I can't believe I did this. I was 21. I walked straight into his office. I think I thought if I overthought it, I just wouldn't go in and confront this person. So I walked straight into their office and I said, hey, look, I just got off the phone from this person. They said that you told them I'm underperforming and I don't turn up to work on time. Hey, I just want to know what that's about. And he said, oh, well, when we start this phase of the construction project, then you need to be here at 6:30 for the pre-start. And I was like, but we don't have that phase happening yet. We don't have development approval. And so I'm getting here at 7:00, which is what we talked about. And so it was just this miscommunication of a bunch of things that had him go, she's not performing. But he'd never spoken to me about it. And I said to him, hey, look, if you don't speak to me about it, I can't actually do anything about it. So while it was a really tricky conversation, I could see from his how he had thought about it in his mind, it occurred one way, and how I thought about it in my mind occurred another way. So I think a lot of these things, if we let them fester, like most things, it can be so hard to confront straight away. But actually, that was really damaging to my reputation. Funnily enough, they still offered me the job. So perhaps I handled it well by going back to this HR person, explaining the conversation, all of that stuff. But it was a real shock and something that was not expected at all.
Yeah, that makes me think, Felicity, and call on the fact that we should always walk into these hard conversations with positive intent assumed. So if someone is messing up, saying the wrong thing, there is a values misalignment, there's reputational damage, there's generally a reason for that, whether it's a miscommunication, something big is happening in that person's life, or they're really struggling and they maybe don't feel like they can actually perform in the environment that they're in. And you don't know if that's because they're not being supported in their role as a leader. Like, there's just so much that can be assumed when you're not in the position of power and you can't understand why your leader is making certain decisions. So my recommendation is always walk into these things and try and understand. Start there. And I think that the way that you phrase that question with, hey, you've given this feedback, I just want to understand why you gave that feedback, as opposed to, I can't believe you did that, I turn up on time, really just firing up, the fact that you walked in there and you're help me understand why this is happening. And I think that will just open this door to, hey, I'm noticing something, I just want to check if you're okay. That really is such a powerful position to start in. And that's actually diminishes this anxiety and hesitation to actually walk into hard conversations. Is if you open up with empathy, lead with empathy to understand, you will get so much further. So thank you for today's conversation, Felicity. This has been wonderful as always. Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Well, I think these things are not easy, and reputation is really critically important. I didn't think it was something that was important early on in my career, but it absolutely is. And, there are big things, these are big conversations, but I think where even if you're not having disagreements or there's things you got to sort out with reputation and character, it's actually the actions that you take every single day that actually put deposits in the bank for your character and for your reputation. So if you're sitting here thinking, oh, my boss is great and we have great conversations, or there's a great culture in my workplace, potentially there's actually still things that you can do every single day, whether it is turning up on time, doing what you say you're going to do, all those things around integrity and the actions, even how you dress. There's so many little things that you can do that can make a really big impact on your reputation and character. And there are actually two key elements of our Respect Leaders framework. And so if you want to learn more about this, jump onto the We Aspire website. We actually have free mini courses that go through the framework and exactly how those things work in our roadmap for becoming a respected leader in your industry. And if you want to go further, we've got our free 1-day uplift event series happening all around Australia. So come along to that to learn more about the Respected Leader Roadmap. And it's free to attend, and we're doing it all across Australia. We'd love to see you there in person. Thanks for another great conversation, Renee. We'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you. And also, I'm just going to point out we didn't really disagree that heavily. And my final thoughts is we opened with the thought around ethical leadership from companies and brands. And I think just to wrap this up, that you as an individual represent your company. So it's your individual actions around consistency, courage, and accountability that lead ethical leadership for companies. So stand up, step into that voice, have those hard conversations, and you will have a phenomenal culture within your company. Thanks so much, Felicity.
So glad you called that out, Renee, because that is definitely like a clickbaity, and we just talked about like doing what you said you're going to do. And before you were like, we were saying like, I think about this, and we had different perspectives on the ethical part. We didn't actually get into that because the conversation went in a different direction. So I'm so glad you called that out, and perfect for the topic of ethical leadership and reputation. Thanks so much, Renee.
Thanks, Felicity. Bye.